Hey, welcome to the Envision More podcast. As we hit our 1-year mark, we're revisiting our top 3 episodes of 2024. These were the conversations that resonated the most, offered engaging conversation, and encouraged listeners to envision more. Whether you're listening again or catching them for the first time, we're excited to share these standout moments with you. Today's episode was our 7th episode, featuring Bryce Wagner. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Envision More. Here, we dig deep into the insights of first-generation wealth builders, unearthing stories of passion, resilience, and relentless vision. Your host is Wayne Wagner Jr., founder of Visionary Wealth Management. So sit back and dig in. It's time to envision more.
This is Wayne Wagner with Visionary Wealth Management. This is the Envision More podcast. Today, I have my favorite son with me, and part of what we're trying to do on this podcast is capture the concepts and the ideas to accelerate values and wealth between generations. And so part of the early stages here is just kind of getting a gut check and a gatekeep, check in with where my own kids are. So Bryce is 19 years old and not going the traditional college route. But Bryce, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, what you're doing right now, and what you're expecting over the course of the next few years?
So right now, I'm actually working with Shades with Liberty Entertainment. We just acquired the company within the past year or so. They have multiple brick and mortar stores, and they actually didn't have a website up yet. And obviously, that's a huge hole for their income streams. So we went ahead and full steam ahead, tried to get it done within a month or two and produce the best possible sunglasses store that you really could have online. Now we kind of went about it and set it up so that we could get it done within a month. And then we figured, well, we know we won't get it done in a month. We won't have the best sunglasses website in the world in a month, but we'll be a lot closer than if we tried to pace it out. So we did that. We got what we could. By 2 weeks later, we had genuinely the best product on the market. And at this point, we are full steam ahead with going and reaching out to brand reps and trying to find people to kind of rep our brand, get our name out there.
Cool. So 96 Shades, and why don't you, we're going to do a little bit of working backwards here. So why don't you tell us about 96 Shades and then the deal that originated that?
So 96 Shades was actually kind of born out of me needing a job for the off season. I was working for Annie Ann's at Cinnabon at the time. I had just become a manager there. I had 20, 30 people under me, making sure that the place is really just running smoothly, making sure that everything is keeping up tight and not falling through the cracks. Now, they were seeing me kind of interact in a business matter and stuff like that. So they could tell that I knew my way around a conversation if it came up. So when I came to them,
and who's they?
Being Josh, Justice, John, you, people that really, they knew I had credit to go to them and say, hey, I think there's an opportunity.
Right.
So now before that, I had just needed a off-season job. I was only working during the summer. Now during the summer, I was making more than I really needed in the moment, so I could last a few months in between jobs and try and find another one in the off-season at the time. So I went to all my friends. I was saying, hey, like, where are you working? Are they hiring? Because for me, like, it doesn't really matter what it is. I know I'm going to work harder than everybody else at it, even if I'm not the best at it. It's really, and that's really the story over and over again that I've kind of had to learn with everything is if you're not working circles around somebody, or everybody really, you're not doing it right. So it's, we went on and I found Jake Booth. He's one of my best buddies. We had just been living with each other over the summer, and Jake was like, hey, I'm working at this sunglasses place. It's cool. They got like high-end brands. We could try on Gucci's and stuff while we're working. Like, yeah, it'll be fun. So I went there. They hired me. I was basically just working in the distribution center. And the first day I went in, and the owner, Mike, was just talking about how he really loves the distribution side of things, but he just can't seem to figure out, or he doesn't love the figuring out of the front end of it, because you have to stay on top of everything. You have to see what's new and hip with the trends. You have to, all these different things that if you were just selling the sunglasses to somebody to do that for you, it would all go smoother. Because if
kind
we're
of the sales, the retail side of the business, right?
Right. So we were just kind of, if you notice, like a lot of times the personality skills don't really come as well with people with the business skills, or i.e. the communication skills and such like that, or emotional awareness. And so I think that he really had a strong set of business skills, and he knew what to do with them, and he just needed someone to better manage the emotional side of things, i.e. appealing to the customers, So we had a conversation. I was like, hey, like, so far, me with this company, I've been working with them for a few years now. We started our first Ben & Jerry's, and year one, we were the rookie of the year, top performing store. And then we went and had that for a couple of years. And then I brought up the idea with Annians. We got that rolling. And year one, again, we're the top performing store worldwide for seasonal businesses. So we're having a pattern of, we don't really need to be a specialty in the thing. It's just, we are all willing to work hard enough to find the solution that we can manage well. So whatever it is, it can be found on Google. You can find somebody to teach it to you. The hard part, where the work comes in, is finding those people to teach it to you. So we are going through and learning new things and just racking up these encyclopedias worth of knowledge on stuff that we didn't know before, but now we're doing it great.
Right.
So we had that conversation of, look, we have a pattern of whatever we go into, we're going to work hard enough to make it the best.
Right.
So if we want to go in sunglasses, let's make it the best. If we're going to go and make a website for this sunglasses brand that hasn't had it for the past 10 years, well, we're going to make it the best, so, or at least try,
Right.
And so we basically had a conversation where he was uncomfortable with running the front end of the store and looking to sell to each of his individual managers at the time. And I kind of had a conversation with him where, look, if you're looking to grow, if you want your kids someday to be able to run this, you're killing it off right here. If you sell it to each of your individual managers, those guys are all not going to have the capital to go out and start another one and branch off. And do you really want the most eager of those people? Do you trust them with your entire family's new fortune? Like stuff like that. So it's, or like your family's name. So why wouldn't you go and find a company that's small owned, looking to get bigger, and basically they are willing to learn whatever it is. And so he was like, okay, but how do we find a person like that? That just doesn't exist. Someone that isn't a corporate company that's going to buy 10 stores. Like, that's outrageous. And then we shook hands. I said, hi, I'm Bryce with Liberty Entertainment. So I got him in touch with Justice. They clicked like best friends. So they've been on and off with each other ever since. So it's all going smoothly, and that's where we are.
So you put this together, you put together the Shades deal. I mean, you came to me and said, Dad, I really think we should take a shot at having a conversation about buying this guy's company from him, at least the retail side. Would you be willing to, engage the conversation with Josh and Justice? I'm sitting there going, I don't know anything about sunglasses. Like, I buy my sunglasses at the truck stop because I'm expecting them to break in a week. So, but we're obviously a bit down the road from there and ended up pulling off the transaction. But you were 18 when you put that together. And that ended up being a $5.5 million total transaction between the real estate, the inventory, and the businesses. So the businesses or forecast, we paid 3 times profits for that, and then the inventory, and then one of the pieces of real estate that came with one of the locations. So, it was a huge deal for an 18-year-old to be involved in, but like, that wasn't I heard something else you said earlier on in your comments there. If you're not working circles around the other people in the room, things are not going to go well for you, right? Or at least not as well as they could go. So, and I think that's one of our Wagner family values is we always want to be the hardest working person in the room, right?
Absolutely.
So go back though. Let's go a few years back because you weren't always Wolverine. Like you were, you were middle school was rough, right?
Right.
And then you went through a massive transformation physically, mentally, all that kind of stuff over a 1 to 2 year period of time. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about middle school and look, let's be transparent about, some of that environment that I contributed to, right? So I was pursuing my own dreams and aspirations and well intended, but I created an environment that caused you great frustration and pain. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So when I was in middle school, it was really it wasn't a fun time. I was in a really small school where there was 10, 20 kids in my class max at a time. There was older and younger classmen, but there was not more than 10 or 15 of each for like each of the grades above me. So it was just kind of the people who you were sat with at the beginning of the year. They were your friends, whether they like you, whether you like them or not.
And you've been with them for 7, 8, 9 years at this stage.
Right. And so it's like, everybody's everything from when they've grown up. Every embarrassing moment has been broadcasted all over the school because it doesn't take long for 20 people to find out. So it was just a lot of there was definitely an inclination that you just become an outcast if you don't want to associate yourself with one type of person. Yeah. So I was instantly seen as an outcast. So I was picked on pretty hard, had a bully up until from all of elementary school to all the way up to 7th grade until it got physical and I was never bullied again. But it was just kind of,
isn't something we put in the marketing materials, but one of our core family beliefs is that everybody needs to get punched in the face once. So
it's fair. I had my fair share at this point, but I mean, even back then, it was just kind of, at this point, I'm around 175 to 180. It's normally where I sit and weight. I was about twice that back then. I mean, I was 320, approaching, I think the top I ever saw on the scale was 330 something. And really, as I went into 10th grade, I was kind of looking around and I was like, all right, everybody around here is running faster than me. The girls look at the guys who have the abs, and that's not the case for me. So I was like, all right, well, something needs to change.
Now you changed schools in 10th grade too, right?
Right. And so I was kind of going from this absolutely nobody to now you're on the same playing field as everybody else because not everybody knows everything about you.
Yeah. New environment, opportunity to hit reset, reboot. Yeah.
Right. And there was legitimately no correlation to my old school. The people that I knew here did not overlap with the people that I knew there, which really just made it so that, hey, this is who I am and this is who I am normally able to be when I'm not put in a rough environment. Well, now I'm accepted socially and I make friends and I'm able to go out and join the lacrosse team and be a goalie for them. And then once I decide that I've lost enough weight doing lacrosse, I kind of discover, hey, I'm getting really low in weight. Now I need to put on some muscle. So instead of doing another year of lacrosse, I'm actually going to go work down at the beach so I can work out every day. Because what is your real goal? Well, I'm not going to college for lacrosse. I'm not going to do some PLL professional, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. I might go join a men's league if I really want to, but the real reason I joined was so that I could have fun with my group of guys because they all played lacrosse and I was 320 pounds and there's a lot of running in lacrosse.
Right.
So,
and at 320, you make a pretty good goalie.
Yeah. Right. Filling most of the goal. But so I was just a big boy. And then I went into the summer of my junior year. I was like, all right, enough is enough. I jumped into it with the 75 hard, just cold turkey, no more sweets. And if I was eating sweets, I couldn't cross 2,000 calories.
Was that late? Was that late 2019 that you did that, or is that early? Like going into, because lacrosse season got canceled 2020 because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, so that was, I think it was 2021 that I started losing the weight.
No, well, you started crushing it during COVID, because during COVID you were in the garage doing jump rope for an hour to 2 hours a day.
Right. I didn't start weightlifting until 2020.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, but I was trying to lose weight for lacrosse that season, and at that point, I had lost 80 pounds for lacrosse.
Right.
And then I went into weightlifting, which was the 75 hard. Yeah. So, but really, what lost the first chunk of weight was really just I stopped eating my tub of Ben and Jerry's every night, and 80 pounds fell off. So it was strictly like life choices. Like once you understand, like, hey, like if you eat this, you feel like this, and if you eat like this, you feel like eh. So you don't want to feel like eh. Like so
you were doing a lot of self-education. I mean, I heard you say, today you're working with the team at Liberty to build stuff that you don't know how to do, but at that time, right? So, and your mom and I had lost ourselves in helping run that little school that you were a part of. And we really lost ourselves. She'd put on 60 pounds. I'd put on 85 pounds. So we weren't you didn't have a good example coming from us in terms of healthy eating habits, or like I wasn't eating a tub of Ben and Jerry's every night, but I was not eating healthy, and I was 320, 330 myself. So you didn't have a good example there. And what we saw was you really going deep in self-education. You starting to meal prep. And like I'd look at the stuff you were eating, which was like dry chicken breast with a little a little salt on it or something, and a little bit of rice, and I'm like, ew, why would you even want to do that?
Yeah, I mean,
where's my cheesesteak?
Right. And so it was a lot of like, well, what do you want to look like when you're older? What do you imagine your lifestyle being? Well, everything I'm attracted to involves being active. Like everything that I want to go out and do, it's a lot easier if I'm not 300 pounds, Right. So as soon as I connected those blocks together, I was like, all right, well, if I just stick it out right now, in 2 months, I'm going to be a lot easier to do exactly what I'm doing right now, so I can do more.
Right.
So at that point, it just kind of becomes interesting of how far can you push yourself. Every day you go into the gym, you're getting a little bit better. Well, then you constantly feel like you're the best version of yourself. And if you've got a huge amount of motivation in one area and you got the ball rolling and there's momentum, well, that momentum relates to everything in your life. When you're ready to go in one area, you can't just be like, in another area. No, your brain's all hyped up already. You're ready to go.
Right.
So it's
so while you were going through this physical transformation, which you ultimately went on to go from 330s down to like 170. I think you're trying to bounce between 175, 185 now. And that's a radical transformation. No drugs, no pills, no doctors, just, and then, I was doing some testing on testosterone this past year, and you went and had yours tested, and you were like off the correct end of the chart. I was off the wrong end of the chart. So, normal testosterone is 880 to 1100, and you come in at like 1370 or some crazy thing. So
dude, it was literally, I had been eating, like, my cholesterol was also like through the roof. So I had to completely, I was eating like 2 pounds of ground beef a day.
Okay.
So I had super high cholesterol. All my levels were boosted because I'm eating so much protein and so much just clean food every day and working out twice a day. And so I'm at peak performance, and I go in and get tested, and they're asking me if I'm on steroids.
Right.
I'm just a healthy 18-year-old,
Right. Yeah. So you, during this period of time, though, while you're going through this physical transformation, Mom and I had asked you we've been asking for years for you to start reading books. but man, something clicked in 2020. Like something clicked. And do you have any, like, I mean, I know it was a pandemic, so maybe we had some more time. You were shelter in place and all that kind of thing. Is that what it was for you, or just the ability to have time to sit?
I mean, it was like kind of along with what I said earlier. There was a lot of momentum going on. I was growing, and I was starting to notice that like I was getting bigger and bigger, and like it felt like there was something I was not feeding, and books kind of filled that hole.
Okay.
There was definitely a sense of like, all right, like I feel like I'm getting better and better physically, but I don't really know that I'm getting better and better mentally. Like I don't feel myself setting myself up for success right now. So until I was able to define what success was for myself and kind of come up with like, all right, well, what's your end goal? If this is your end goal, what do you need to do and what do you need to create to get there? And once you that end goal changes every 3 months for me. But as long as there's something at the end of the road, there's something to chase. So
what does that mean, the end goal? And you say that it shifts because like I'm 51, and when I think end goal, I'm thinking 20 years from now when I'm 71, or 30 years from now when I'm hopefully starting to go over the cliff physically in my 80s. But so they're setting goals, but then adjusting sights every 3 months.
I guess, okay, I wouldn't say adjusting sights on the whole goal. I guess the next closest goal, that being.
Okay.
So I will go out and chase a highly unattainable goal, knowing that I will not hit it. The thought process being, I'm not going to hit that goal, but if I give it my all to get there in a way shorter amount of time, wherever I land, it's going to be so much closer than where I would have been if I tried to pace out the next year of trying to hit that goal.
So give us an example of that.
So the 75 hard, I could not break 240. I hit 240 and I sat there for 3.5 months. So I did the 75 hard and I hit it hard. I was doing an hour in the morning and an hour at night working out, sauna during the day, eating exactly the amount of food, exactly what kind, for 75 days straight. Now, the goal there was the perfect six-pack. Now, I knew I wasn't going to get a perfect six-pack because even if I lost the weight, I was still going to have another 20, 25 pounds of just dead skin hanging off me from being 320 pounds. But I knew if I chased it like I could get there, well, I fell short, but I was still 175 by the time the 75 hard ended. I still dropped from 240 to 175. So it was.
Can I show a picture? It's an after picture. It's a current picture.
All right.
All right. So this is that summer, right? So and by that point, it's still not a ripped six-pack, but even the skin is starting to go away at this stage, right?
Right.
So it's good to be young, Bryce.
Yeah, it's I'm chasing it and taking my supplements, so it's trying to just do it the right way so I don't got scarring to get it going the wrong way, I guess. But
yeah, that's 2020. So part of what Mom and I have done with you and CJ is we pay you to read books, and we're setting family goals, family impact goals, family lifetime giving goals, things like that. And we're bringing you into those conversations. And then we're asking you to read books to keep up with Mom and I on that front. 2020, you read like 19 books that year. I remember because it cost me a lot of money. It would cost me more money that year than you had cost me all the years cumulative before that. But that was the year you turned 16. Do you remember a few of those books that were really pivotal for you? I have one or two in my head that I recall, but
yeah, I mean, one that was certainly like made me kind of stop in my tracks was so I had already been managing people for a year and a half, and then I read Rocket Fuel and 1 Minute Manager. Okay, well, you just read that and it's like you just instantly remember all the ways that you treated people that are nothing like this book.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that was really the biggest pivotal moment, just because I went from going into the next summer thinking I have to lead with an iron fist to I had the greatest summer of my entire life, because I became best friends with this group of people. And through that community of everyone feeling accepted, the shop got cleaned. Sure, there was a couple of nights where I had to stay late or something like that, but that would have happened anyway. And at least there was a good attitude about everybody this way, you know? And once I saw that work, once I saw that those methods just be the right guidebook for it, I was really impressed with it, like even more so impressed than I was before with it.
Yeah. And you were saying here you had at 16, and it's important because, an origin story from where you've been to where you are to where you're going is, there's some things you have to overcome to get to have gotten where you are. Right. And what we're saying, there'll be some people here that are listening to this. They're like, whoa, I thought you said the kid was 16 and he just said he had a year and a half of managerial experience. I mean, unpack that, because that's unique in and of itself. You're 16 years old with a year and a half. How's that work?
A year and a half being a season and a half, but we're doing, through that season of 3 months, we're doing 10 times the amount of sales of the average store. Right. So whatever McDonald's you've been to when it's busy, imagine you added twice the crowd. It's right. And that's a lot of times from when we open to when we close.
Yeah, and context here is Liberty Entertainment runs Ben and Jerry's, Annie and Cinnabon, escape rooms, Shades, so on and so forth, all on the Ocean City, New Jersey boardwalk. And Bryce, you've been working down there since I think you were 14, right? So at 14, you went in and worked at Ben and Jerry's. At 15, you went in and helped manage that store. And then at 16, you were coming in hot. I think you were running the Ben and Jerry's store pretty much on your own that year, wasn't it?
So I was a shift leader when I was 15, and then I was assistant manager when I was 16.
Okay.
But I think I was assistant to someone at escape room, so it was kind of me and one other person running the show. Okay. But it was just
and understand so that Ben and Jerry's store is a $400,000 to $500,000 top line revenue in 5 months. So you're running pretty close to $100,000 a month in revenue. So it's $25,000 a week. So $3,000 to $5,000 a day in revenue, with some days popping out the top of that. So
right, it's just an ice cream shop. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, for an ice cream shop, that's a lot of coin. So. We, as an owner, we wish it was a 12-month season, but we don't get that on the Jersey Shore. So, because it's a little unique for a 16-year-old to have that, that much experience, and at 16, that was the year you also came to Mom and I and said, "Hey, I don't want to go to college." So now. I'll give the for Mom and I, which was my mom and dad were first generation college graduates. Mom's mom and dad were first generation college attendees and graduates. Mom and I both went to college. And so for now the third generation, and we're thinking, our expectation is, well, of course you're going to college. So it wasn't an easy sell, but why don't you walk us through what your thought process was then and kind of what it's led to now?
Right. So when I had that conversation with you guys, I had just gone on a trip for formal training for Annie and Cinnabon at Focus Brands headquarters. So we had flown out, and really just deep diving, going through, asking the right questions, and pulling apart every question I've had from working there, pulling apart every question that I would have for when I will be working there, because I hadn't worked there at that point.
Yeah, you had a couple years experience with Ben and Jerry's, but now we were opening Annie and Cinnabon, and you were going to be helping. You were going to be helping us build the team. Right.
So I was really just thrown into it, researching everything about being a manager all the time. Just really, Google was my best friend for about 3.5 months, and I basically learned how to run the show. And then we went out, opened, and year one, we were the top performing seasonal store worldwide. So that was a good thing to accomplish, but also it was certainly a journey trying to figure out how to get people to respect you as a 17-year-old who's managing a 34, 35-year-old person with kids,
Right.
So
Right.
you kind of have to treat them as if they're on the same level as you, while they have a certain understanding of, look, I do need things to get done,
Yeah.
But
dignity and respect is something we talk about a lot, right? So when you don't treat team players, you don't treat staff members, like you treat you don't treat them like a wounded animal. You treat them like equals, dignity, honor, respect, right? And I think one of the other books that you read that year of 2020 that you, because I remember a specific conversation, was John Maxwell's book on teamwork, because you came back to me and had a couple of things to say about how my business partners were managing the team that year, and I'm like, dude, you're 16. You read 7 books, and all of a sudden you know everything there is to know about leadership. It's okay, but go read another 200 books before you start critiquing my partners. So,
right.
But let's go back to, so you go to Focus Brands training for Annie Ann's and Cinnabon. You're going to help open that store. And you come to Mom and I and are like, I don't want to go to college. Instead, and I said to you, well, you got to go to college, or you got to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the plan that you presented?
So at that point, it was not what it was now. I mean, Shades was not even in the deck of cards yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely more so like, look, I'm doing this well, and people go to college to be in the position that I'm at. And at 16, 17, I was looking at my resume and seeing like, okay, well, by the time I'm 18, I'm going to be having 3 years of managing experience and at some of the top stores worldwide. Like I can go manage most of anywhere if I go apply for it. Whatever it is, I can go get a 60, 70, 80, $100,000 job for that amount. And once I've made enough, then I can go back to college if I want to, if I haven't found something else. That's kind of the plan I saw short term. And I knew that was putting a fat cap on my future, but for me in the moment, it was just kind of like, I know something more is going to come of this. I know we're going to have better ideas that we can work off of. And I know that with this group of guys, we can make anything work.
Well, you painted a 10-year picture for me. Do you remember what that 10-year picture was?
Not directly right now. Maybe give me a refresher.
Well, what you said to me was that we wanted, you had heard us talk about taking Liberty Entertainment to 40 locations.
Right.
And you'd heard us talking about, and you've been in conversations where we're talking about the crucial part to our move from 4 or 5 locations to 40 was going to be, we're absolutely going to have another layer or 2 of management. We were going to have to have kind of a district manager structure and a regional manager, a regional manager structure. Right. So we'd have to have some people who are coming in and responsible not for 1 store, but for 3 to 5 stores. And then somebody above that who was maybe responsible for 3 or 4 of those people.
Right.
And so what you kind of painted for me was, hey, Dad, because you didn't just want a salary out of this either. So what's that?
I was gonna say, actually, I didn't want a salary at all. That's down at the shore. Your tips are where you live.
So what you presented to me was that you wanted to go take the ride with Liberty, help us go from 4 to 40, because if you were a regional manager by the time you were 10 years down the road, the business should be paying you low 6 figures to do that. And then you wanted something else. You wanted a pot sweetener. Do you remember what that was?
I think it was are you talking about the 5% as opposed to college?
Yep.
Right. So I had brought to him, and it was basically like, if I could have a piece of Liberty, that would give me an excuse to stay with them forever. And when doing payouts, that would support me for the rest of my life.
Right. You remember how you got to 5%?
I think you started at 3 though, didn't you?
Well, I think you came to me with the proposal was you had done the research. You came to me and you said,
the price.
What were we valuing? Go ahead.
I was going to say what we would value the business at that point, and then on a 3x scale, and I figured out what he would pay on average for college tuition, which is, i.e., the money that he would save if I didn't go to college. And I was like, all right, well, could we trade that percentage for my college fund? And the deal was yeah. And at this point, I mean, now that's 5% of all of Shades as well. So it's working out.
Yeah. So it's what you came to me with was, hey, I know what you guys have valued Liberty at this stage. I know what you spent on my sister to go to college for 4 years. The right percentage there, if you don't have to pay for college for me, is about 5% of the equity of Shades. So if I don't go to college, I want you to give me 5% of the equity of Shades, which I tried to negotiate it down, and I kind of got it kicked under the table by your mother. So, but so that was the trade-off, right? That was hey, I'm not going to go to college, but the plan is I'm going to take an equity stake. I'm going to get an equity stake in the business that I'm helping operate, and then I'm going to grow with the business. And then you're with some exceptional entrepreneurs, Josh and Justice Voles. You've got some other really gifted and talented people on that team, guys like Sam Bangs. And then with the acquisition of Shades, we've layered in so many great salespeople and managers from the various stores and locations there. And there's just so much to learn from all of those people. So and this past year, as a case in point, I mean, we took Liberty overall from 4 locations to 14 locations in 4 months. Right. So this 2023 was absolutely explosive, exponential growth that I think a couple of us had some pretty anxiety-ridden, sleepless nights there. So not that 18 and 19-year-olds among us, but those of us who are cutting the checks, we're feeling the pain.
Right.
So, well, cool. Bryce, what do you like? You mentioned Rocket Fuel. You mentioned 1 Minute Manager. I talked about John Maxwell's book on teamwork. What are a couple of, and you've talked about, how you mentally put together the construct of what a Shades deal would look like with Mike Schwartz, and then brought that to Josh, Justice, and I. I mean, that is a lot for an 18, 19-year-old guy. And look, we live in a world where there's TikTokers that are making $1 million a year who, because they're jumping out of planes or jumping off bridges or some crazy thing that they get followers. You have exhibited at age 18, 19 an uncanny amount of business acumen. Like where did that come from? How did that develop?
I think that kind of once you understand the rules, it's pretty easy to try to get around them, if that makes sense. So it's all about creating ways to bridge the gap between 2 smaller things, right? So right now with the sunglasses, we're trying to bridge the gap from people buying it directly from the maker or the main consumer to direct them to buy it from us. So we're going out and finding people's favorite influencers and people that look up to other people, and people that'll catch attention or leaders of the community, and trying to bridge that gap and have them be the ones to say, hey, take this route over here. So it's once I kind of understood that once you bring value to someone, they will give you credit. They'll give you some sort of credit for that. I kind of started to notice that well, I can walk myself around that sort of conversation pretty well. Well, if I'm good at having a conversation, all I need now is the knowledge, i.e. the 19 books, to be able to have an intelligent conversation. And once I started working my way through all that knowledge and working my way through those books, I started to see the things, the patterns that lined up within them. And once you kind of get down how a business can make money, and you have those list of things in your head and you're constantly looking for them and everything, like eventually the gumball machine is going to spit out a ball and something's going to work out.
Right.
So if I'm sitting there and I'm spitballing 100 ideas to someone, eventually one of them is going to be like, hey, that's not too bad, right? And I started to notice that, like, okay, well, the faster I can create these ideas and throw them out in my head, the faster I'm going to get to a good one. Well, all of those things correlated to each other and how they worked out. Well, now I'm able to talk with other people because I have figured it out on my own. I've gone through and figured out how somebody would make money off of something, off of my own situation in my own head, that I can now apply it to someone else based off the stories and the books.
You just said something that really struck me. And it's this idea of being willing to come up with, put in the time and effort to come up with 100 ideas, knowing that 95 of them are going to get canned.
Right.
That's a 95% failure rate.
It's more than that.
Right. And reality, it is probably more than that. But here's what I'm observing. We live in a risk-averse society. We live in a world, social media has created an environment where people are afraid to fail. They're afraid to take a risk, step out, do something for fear of ridicule. And I would say, like, you and I have had conversations about when, like in middle school, everything you put online lives forever. And it felt like it was, your weakest moment, your worst interaction could be brought up over and over and over again for years, and how disastrous and how painful that was emotionally for you to have those things still out there. And today, you don't like me sharing even pictures of you back then, because you're like, well, that's not the guy I am.
Right.
You were my little guy at that time, but that's not the man that you are today, or the man that you want to become tomorrow. And so, but I do think in our society that has those painful lessons of middle school tend to stick with people, and so they get kind of genetically predisposed to avoid failure, right?
I think there's multiple ways you can take that, right? So if you're getting bullied every day, eventually you're either going to crumble into this ball and feel like you can't go out and fail and you have to succeed if you're going to make an effort, or if they're going to push you so far that you snap and you don't care what anybody else thinks about you unless you have some sort of tie to them.
Right.
So I think that was me. I think there was a certain point where I had enough and something snapped within my head, and in a sense, and it was really just, I went from,
maybe we say clicked instead of snapped.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Something clicked in my head, and it was just kind of like, okay, well, everything that someone says has so much leverage over the way I act. Like, anytime someone's saying anything about my weight, I can feel my blood boil. And I could not understand what was going on. And then one day, I did something about it. I went to the gym and I noticed my blood was boiling. I went to the gym and immediately everything calmed down. Well, then you start to realize that, like, well, nobody else is going to stop your blood from boiling. You have, like, no one's going to save you from that. You have to be able to, like, control yourself. And that was really the way that I got control, was when you go to the gym, there's this sense of calmness and peace afterwards, of just all the endorphins releasing, really. And I had legitimately never been healthy enough to entertain the thought of feeling those endorphins. So once I started noticing that, wow, like, I'd never felt true peace before. I dove so hard into that, and that's really what pushed me forward on that journey.
Right. I think there's a pattern, that idea of, because you and I got into this actually in counseling, where when you were 12 or 13, we weren't in crisis, but before we got to crisis, like I saw the time coming at age 15 to 25 period where guys and their dads usually lose each other. I saw that coming up quick, and I was like, no, 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 no. I have got to do everything I possibly can to keep us tethered during that 15 to 25 period, because there's so much opportunity for Bryce to accelerate between his ears and in life during that period of time if we can retain the communication. But I was going into that. So I was going to that season when you were 12 or 13, and I was seeing stuff in me that ironically was an echo of what it was. It was a mirror of what had happened with my dad. Right. So my dad, who's, a God-fearing, good guy, married to his first wife, married to mom, and has done everything right. But dad didn't have a career. He didn't, that was, and he didn't have a context for where he earned a lot of respect. So in community, church, work, he didn't get a lot of respect. He was a little bit like Rodney Dangerfield for some of you older folks. Remember the old comedian, the guy that gets no respect. That was dad. And so part of my construct growing up, and when I became an adult, was I'm going to be a guy who earns respect. And so I pursued a career, and I pursued influence, and I, became someone who, when I walked in a room, I've earned respect. And then when I was coming into my house, I found you interacting with me in the same way that I interacted with my dad, which was, well, nobody else, my attitude was, nobody else respects you, I'm not going to respect you. Your attitude seemed to be, well, everybody respects you, but you haven't done anything for me. In fact, you still got me stuck in a school where I get bullied every day, and you're donating the money that keeps that school afloat, that enables my bullies to pick on me every day. And so I would walk in the house, and you wouldn't say that, you wouldn't verbalize it like that, but I would get attitude from you. Well, my attitude towards you was the same as my dad's attitude towards me, which was, how dare you? And it was those Homer Simpson grabbing Bart Simpson around the neck, and his eyes bulging out. No, we didn't quite get there, but that mindset, when you and I went to counseling, really, what the counselor said was, why are you giving Bryce the keys to your emotions? That how a 12 or 13-year-old, and I think she used the word button, like, or remote control. I think she said, why are you giving Bryce the remote control to your emotions when you're giving that remote control of your emotions to a 12 or 13-year-old who is going to be predisposed to say, hey, when I push this button, Dad's hair catches on fire. How many times can I push that button before dinner? Right. And then but if a 12 or 13-year-old, and that really was no different than how I treated my dad when I was that age. But nobody gave my dad that analogy. And so my dad and I had an estranged relationship for a lot of years. That was that perspective for me was so massive, but it's so applicable now in that, like, how we all have an emotional remote control, and we choose day by day, minute by minute, whether we're going to give up control of that remote control to somebody else. Right. So have you found that to be true? And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really comes down to, like, there is a sense of, like, if I know that if I were to be put in that situation again, my go-to is not always mentally handle it. So I had to become mentally strong enough to not get physical. I think that is another reason for the books, really, was I was turning into a very agile young guy and really way too strong I was benching 285 pounds when I was 17 years old, just too strong for that young of an age, for especially where I was at mentally. We took the test. I had raging testosterone, and I really had no real mental process to handle that either. So, even when I was going from 17 to 18 and some of the time when I was 18, we were really butting heads still. When in reality, it was just my body has grown so much, and I'm so much further along within my physical world that's my strongest attribute. That's the best thing about me I got going. So, of course, I'm going to whip that out when I'm getting into a fight with someone. So it was really just learning how to mentally be under control was a big reason for the books.
Well, yeah, and you and I ultimately found things like late at night we can't have serious conversations, and because when if any kind of conflict arose after about 9 o'clock at night, it was going to be a major confrontation. It was primarily because we were both really tired.
Right.
And so we're physically tired. And so our buffers and our filters are down. And it's just like, it's so easy in that kind of a situation when your filters come down, to say something that's like, hey, we're having a knife fight and somebody pulls out a nuke. And it's like, yo, hey, you just burned this thing to the ground. Or I just said something. I did not mean that. Right. There's so many opportunities. So we had to find ways of interacting. And then I think for us, a safe word was really key, to just give each other the right with a safe word to go, nope, hold on. This stops right now.
24 hours on that conversation.
We'll come back within 24 hours, but not another word right now.
Right.
So that became so key. I think that gave us the ability, some construct and some context to be able to put things on pause and come back with a little bit of sleep, or at least exhale a couple of breaths.
Right.
So, if you're looking at other people who are teenagers or going into college, you're not going to have a traditional college experience. So you're not, but if you're looking at how you think versus maybe how some of the other folks in your sphere think, what would be one or two points that you would say, hey, here's some opportunity for improvement?
For me or for my peers?
For your peers.
Well, one thing is just going to be really just discipline. I think that's something that I kind of became very acquainted with when I started working out, because that's what it's all about, right? It's about what you're doing most of the time. Most of the time, are you not working and not catching up with friends, or just ditching your friends? Like, what's going on, right? So as far as my peers, I think there is a sense of lack of discipline and lack of wanting to keep your body at peak condition. But that really just comes with time though, right? Like I understand that I'm not mentally where I should be as a 19-year-old. I can't look at other 19-year-olds and say, you don't fit in with me. That's not fair. But I can look at my other 19-year-olds and say, hey,
it's hard to get a date if you come at it from that perspective.
That's also fair. But I can look at my other 19-year-old friends and say, hey, you're not going to be the iron that sharpens me, but I can certainly be a stone for you. So it's kind of being able to shift that mindset of, okay, I'm going to let these guys be the ones that I learn from, and then I can go have fun with these guys. There's a sense of
that's such a rich analogy, Bryce. You're not going to be the iron that cuts me, but I can certainly be a stone that sharpens you.
Right.
That's good. That's a good line. So
good. There's certainly a sense of just applying that to really everything.
Right. We're shooting this early 2024. We're just about to go away for our annual planning retreat as a family. At that point, we're going to be talking about 1, 3, 5-year goals. Like, what do you want 5 years from now? You're going to be 24 years old. Let's call it 25. By age 25, what do you want life to look like for you? Married with 6 kids?
What was it? Yeah.
Married with 6 kids?
I don't know about all that. Oh. By 25? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said 25. You better get busy.
Goodness.
No pressure.
Yeah, right. By 25, certainly the idea would be married.
Okay.
Hopefully to my beautiful girlfriend that I have now. But the idea would be exploring life in that area and that relationship with her, as well as continuing to keep the ball rolling forward, or the ball snowballing down the hill, with 96 Shades. I'm thinking I'm kind of fitting in there right now. I'm figuring it out, and it's choppy to like figure out, but once you start putting the pieces together, the puzzle starts looking right, and things start falling together.
Okay, good. So Shades, Liberty, on the work side. We haven't mentioned her name, and I'll leave that. It's for you to mention her name, but there's a young lady involved here, and we're exploring some things there, so which is great. So, well, good. Bryce, what if you had 1 or 2 thoughts for our listeners here on this topic of envisioning more? What would your thoughts be?
I think just my thoughts would be something along the lines of, I would say just be sure to have goals. If you're working towards something, it should be something that you're not going to obtain. It should be something way bigger than wherever you want to land, because on your way up to that real big goal, you're going to land somewhere further than you would have if you had a smaller goal. So if whatever you're doing with everything, just try and overshoot, and you might make it,
Good stuff. So have goals, and make them bigger than what you think you can reach.
Right.
That's good. That's really good food for thought. Bryce, thanks so much for being here today. I think this is probably a good spot to cut it off. Thank you for making the time to do this. And I, as dad, I'll say it publicly, I'm really proud of you. I love you very much. And I'm excited to see where the months and years take you from here.
You and me both, man. Thank you for having me. It's gonna be a fun trip.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, it will be. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Envision More podcast with Wayne Wagner Jr. of Visionary Wealth Management. We hope you were encouraged and inspired by the conversation today. If you want to dig deeper into the show notes or Wayne's work at Visionary, you can find us at envisionmore.com. That's Envision with a Z. Advisory services are provided through Wealth Plan Investment Management. Wealth Plan Investment Management and Visionary Wealth Management are separate entities. The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Thanks for listening.